Katie LaFalcia, welcome back to Irish Granny Helen. And we're still on our Saturday book, and we're on Jesus and the Lost Goddess, number 8. The subtitle is The Secret Teachings of the Original Christians, being Gnosticism. And I've been trying very hard to make this digestible. It's complicated. And I hope I'm not confusing everybody. Let me know, okay? So let's continue along the way here. They're now talking about something called the seamless garment. In the Gospels, they tell the story of Christ's garment being divided by lots. Like they made a book of it called The Robe, and then they made a movie of it. What was the name of that actor? Stephen Boyd, very handsome young man in the 50s. The Roman centurion sat at the foot of the cross and threw lots for his robe. I think they referred to it as like dice, but they didn't really use dice. They had something else. They did bones. Okay, so in the Gospels, his clothes were divided. This is symbolic. This is not like a real guy was hanging there and they were dividing up his stuff. It's symbolic of consciousness being revealed. The psyche is the clothes, getting rid of the clothes, getting rid of that attachment to the physical. The garments are removed. So his clothes are called seamless, all of one piece. The soldiers throw lots for them. And in Plato, the psyches throw lots to receive their next lives. That's how it's done in Plato. In the Acts of John, John flees. He's too afraid to stick around to see Jesus crucified. But Jesus appears to him, to John, as light. Get my glasses here so I can read this. So the archetypal Christ is the light, which is illuminating the underworld cave to enlighten John. Jesus shows John the cross of light and explains, quote, "This cross of light is sometimes called logos by me for your sakes, sometimes consciousness, sometimes Jesus." Now, Jesus is saying this. Sometimes Christ, sometimes a door, sometimes bread, sometimes seed, sometimes resurrection, sometimes Son, Father, Spirit, life, faith, grace. But as to what it is in itself, it is the marking off and delimitation. This is not that wooden cross which you will see when you go down from here, nor am I the man who is on the cross. I am who you now cannot see, but only hear. I was taken to be what I am not. I am not what for many others I was. What I am is known to me and no one else. So this feels like he was speaking in riddles, but if you think about it in the context of Gnosticism, he's telling John, not the physical thing that you think I am. This is not a story of a real person. And if it were, the idea is that the death of the body is symbolic of turning away from identification with the physical. The crowd beneath the cross represents the spiritually dead. They're lost in ignorance, and when they understand their true nature, they all will be unified. The cross is probably derived from the shape of the Egyptian Ankh as the prototype. It's a very important symbol, and it was a very important symbol to the earliest Christians, the circle above the T-cross. It's the same shape as a snake that Moses lifts up in the desert. So there's that continuity there. It represents wholeness and nothingness, mystery cut by duality. The circle part is that which is whole, the essence. The T part is that which is divided, the appearance. In the story of Jesus, the two Marys at the foot of the cross are being reunited by the fact of Jesus on the cross. And he introduces them to each other. If you remember the quote from the gospel, Jesus says to Mary, Mary, this is your mother, and then Mary, this is your daughter. And it symbolizes the uniting of Sophia and Achamoth. It's the mystical marriage of Jesus and the goddess. It's represented by the tearing of the temple veil, because as soon as those two unite and are joined together in an understanding of who they are, really, the veil in the temple rips, and it's symbolic. It reveals the Holy of Holies. It was hidden behind this veil. It's revealing the truth of Gnosis. It refers to both pagan and Jewish tradition in this way. The god and the goddess unite to be one in a primal union of mystery. Chapter 10, the God of the Blind. We have a quotation here for you. Evil is thought to abound on earth. But if you could see the plan of providence, you would not think that there was evil anywhere. This is from Boethius, The Consolation of Philosophy. So the demiurge is the symbol of ego. In the Old Testament, it's represented by Jehovah. And it's why Jungian psychologists call egotistical self-inflation the Jehovah complex. His ego is because he has no knowledge of the greater psyche of which he is a part, consciousness and mystery. He has no understanding of the true purpose of creation, which is to free the consciousness trapped in ignorance, to not understand true purpose of life, the importance of awakening to the understanding of our true essence. That's gnosis. The suffering of the cosmos is because of ignorance. So our natural goodness is eclipsed by ego. Jehovah, the demiurge, is representative of the blindness to gnosis. It's not evilness, it's ignorance and foolishness. And it can be redeemed with knowledge. And I have to be full disclosure here. The minute I read this description, representative of blindness to knowledge, not evil, ignorant and foolish, and it can be redeemed with knowledge, I thought of MAGA. Beginning of spiritual maturation requires the ego to begin the evolution to gnosis. So we must transcend the ego. It's ignorance. That's the source of the devil and fallen angels. It's the shadow self. It's the self that identifies wholly and embraces the physical world. Designer handbags, fancy cars, big houses, all these things that are so important to us, well, some of us, they are meaningless. Those are not what life is about. Carl Jung agrees on a psychological level, and he called the Gnostics proto-psychologists. Looking deeper, the information is not about a demiurge responsible for evils. It's about the ego. But the inner mysteries go even farther than that. They get all philosophical. And they talk about free will and fate. I found this very challenging. The allegory of the demiurge is looking from the pneumatic view, the view of the inner mysteries. And it teaches about free will. In the allegory, the demiurge doesn't choose evil with free will. Achamoth acts through him, but she's acting for the Christ symbol, to gather the ignorant, to bring them back to gnosis, which is the knowledge of the universal consciousness of God. The ego feels godlike, but is merely displaying the source of consciousness trapped in ignorance. It's a really weird way to think of it. Ego is the idea of ourselves as autonomous, acting separately, from the whole. But all is one. Our actions rise spontaneously from the mystery. Our actions are not the products of our free will. They issue from the will of God. And so in the margin here, I wrote a big gigantic what? What? I'm going to read that again. Our actions rise spontaneously from the mystery. They are not the products of our free will. They issue from the will of God. So there's a purpose to all the bad. I have to extrapolate that from what this just said. To really understand, the pneumatic initiation is about transcending the illusion of personal autonomy. We are consciousness passively witnessing the unfolding oneness, and this includes our thoughts and actions. This doesn't mean that we're automatons without free will. It means that there is no us. There is only the mystery witnessing the oneness. We're part of the whole of consciousness, providing the object to be witnessed. I hope I got that right. God is the center of the circle of the self from which everything issues. So Menomius was an early Christian. I wish he had an easier name to pronounce. And he said this. I thought this was really interesting. Stop searching for God outside yourself. Look for him within. Examine who says, my God, my consciousness, my understanding, my psyche, my body. Investigate the source of your experiences of sorrow and joy, love and hate, waking up though you won't will it, and sleeping though you don't will it, and falling in love though you don't will it. If you closely investigate these things, you will find him, God, in yourself, the unity in variety, like a central point. Thus you will find it in yourself, a way out of yourself. It probably requires a few more readings to really digest it. So our thoughts arise from the darkness of the unconscious mystery, and it requires contemplation for us to see it, to recognize it. We can't stop them. We don't cause them. But even when we think, I will think such a way, this is regressive because we don't cause thought. So thoughts arise from the darkness of the unconscious mystery. It's not about us at all because there is no us. We're part of the mystery. That's as close as I can come to trying to understand it. Our actions come from our thoughts. Our thoughts are not our own. Our actions are not our own. They're all part of the mystery. We will witness our thoughts and actions from where we don't know. That's the mystery. The psyche in the allegory is the Virgin Mother because not knowing from where this birth is coming is the symbology, representation of what they're trying to get across here. So the psyche in the allegory is the Virgin Mother because she doesn't know from where the birth comes. We don't know from where our ideas and our actions come. Plotinus teaches, just as the spoken word is an echo of the thought in the psyche, so thought in the psyche is itself an echo from elsewhere. Philo teaches that we are egotistical and godless if, as separate individuals, we think ourselves equal to God by believing we're acting, when in truth we are passively experiencing. What we think and do is the fruition of what God has sowed and planted in the psyche, and it is impious, depending, potato, for us to say we do the planning. Paul proclaims, quote, the life I now live is not my life, but the life which Christ lives in me. In the Gospel of John, Jesus teaches, I am not myself the source of the words I speak to you. It is the Father who dwells in me doing his own work. So if you heard that quote coming from Jesus from the story in one of the Gospels, and you were an early Christian, a Gnostic, you would recognize that. You would recognize what he was really trying to get across to you there. The Christian sage Bardesanes teaches that the three theories about volition, will, that our lives are completely determined, or that we are subjected to the rule of fate and that we are free. Those three things are all partly true and partly false. As a physical body, we're all governed equally by the laws of nature. As a psyche, we're all governed differently by our justly deserved fate, which decrees our various experiences in life. And third, as consciousness, we are each as free as we let ourselves be. Consciousness is utterly free, and so are we. Therefore, to the degree that we realize our true nature, we are determined, fated, and free, relative to the different levels of our identity. But ultimately, all issues from the will of God. Nature has to do with the body, fate with the psyche, freedom with consciousness. Nothing is absolute. God alone is the absolute. God can seem to act imperfectly through us because our ego distorts the perfect goodness of our nature. Wickedness is a misguided desire to know consciousness. The original Greek word for sin is hamartia, which it's an archery term. And the word in Greek for sin means to miss the mark. For the earliest Christians, sin is not evil. Sin is a mess up in an effort to express our true nature and instead do something stupid. We miss the mark. Our true nature is God, and we are flawed on a journey to manifest our perfect essence. Christian literalists say terrible things are from a force of absolute evil, the devil or whatever, sin. That's not true. They come from a lack of gnosis. Jesus said, they know not what they do. Bad people are aspects of oneness. They're all part of God. They're aspects of oneness thinking they're separate ego. They're misguided. They hurt themselves and others to serve selfishness. Therefore, guilt and blame are really irrelevant. It's about ignorance. They're not evil people. They're ignorant. Plotinus said they're like children. Immature, unaware of essential nature and the unity of all. We are all one, so this is like someone, some fool, hitting his own head with his fist. All are affected, and when we point fingers to condemn others, it's like that fool blaming his own fist for its evil nature and punishing himself. How can God be a source of evil if God is good? The Gnostic teachings don't explain individual evils that we each confront. Gnostics believe that philosophy does not and cannot explain all those individual evils, but they say their beliefs account for the inevitability of evil and how it has a positive role in the greater good. Call evil the inevitable byproduct of the process of origination. It's the product of ego. Consciousness requires the duality of subject and object, the observer to be observed. And all dualities are implied in this, including good and evil. And I wrote, I don't fully get this. Maybe I understand a little better than when I read it the other day. Consciousness requires the duality of subject and object. In order to know itself, it has to look at itself. It has to have that duality. The observer and the observed. All dualities are implied in this, including good and evil. In other words, you can't have good without evil. You can't have light without dark, because the words are meaningless if there's nothing against which to compare. The oneness good, and when it arises as two, it inevitably becomes good and bad. It's the tragic rupture of the divine absolute in the flawed material world. Separation from absolute unity creates opposing forces. So that's a good way of looking at it. When you separate from the unity, which you never want to do, that's when the opposing forces arise. Light and dark, spirit versus matter, good versus evil. The good can't be described, it's beyond description. But because we live in a flawed material state, we see the good-bad duality. When consciousness separates into the material world as the objective psyche, the inevitability of evil is implicit in this duality. Okay, it's the separation from wholeness, from unity, from oneness that leads to all the problems. Thinking you're unique, ego. The root of all evil is duality, separation, objectification. The essence of all goodness is the resolve to end duality. Try to reach oneness again, which we experience as love. Undivided, there is no good or bad. It's the division that creates the duality. When consciousness separates itself as objectified psyche, Pythagoras said the cosmic egg in the beginning is oneness, and it splits in half to a primal duality. What arose from the egg is eros, love. Oneness's impulse is to reunite. Love is the unification. But without separation or evil, there would be no unification or love. Good and evil arise together. Like the right and left hands of God. Okay, let's see here. Light and darkness, life and death, good and evil are pairs of mutually dependent siblings who only exist in relationship with each other. The letters of Clement, now Clement was one of the early church leaders of early Christianity. It describes good and evil as the right and left hands of God. A Mandean text teaches light and darkness are brothers emanating from one mystery. This other school of Christianity portrays the devil, the embodiment of evil, as the brother of Christ, the embodiment of good. The devil is the divider who entraps us in the illusion of separation. Christ is the uniter who frees us to realize the essential oneness. Incontinence is bad for the incontinent, but good for the doctors. Death is bad for the dying, but good for the undertakers. And in the Consolation of Philosophy, Boethius, Sophia says, all fortune, whether pleasant or unpleasant, is meant either to reward and encourage the good or punish and correct the bad. So the cosmos is symbolized by the Ouroboros. And this is that snake in a circle eating its own tail. What's good for the head is bad for the tail. And the snake eating itself. Evil plays a positive role in evolution. Bad is the important turning point in the journey of awakening. The spiritual quest is driven by suffering. The stick and the carrot, they goad us along the path of life. Life, hear my bird. Life parents us to a spiritual maturity. Sophia says, what I want to say is such a paradox that I am hardly able to put it into words. For bad fortune is often of more use to someone than good fortune. Good fortune always seems to bring happiness, but deceives you with her smiles. Whereas bad fortune is always truthful, because by changing, she shows her true fickleness. Good fortune deceives, but bad fortune enlightens. In the world of duality, sooner or later, everything must turn into its opposite. Day becomes night, living things die. Good fortune turns to bad fortune. Good fortune deceives us into investing our happiness in necessarily transitory appearances, which must ultimately disappoint. What appears to be good fortune, on the other hand, can inspire us to see, what appears to be bad fortune, on the other hand, can inspire us to seek out a deeper source of joy by discovering the perpetual bliss of our permanent essence. What appears bad to us is actually tough love. The apparent evils of life are the good in disguise. Now we're on chapter 11, the mystical marriage. Through Gnosis, we are purified of diversity and experiencing the vision of unity. Those who have realized Gnosis know the source and the destination. They have set themselves free by waking up from the stupor in which they lived and becoming themselves. So what is Gnosis? It requires an embrace of a paradox. And this is really hard for our poor human brains. Life is ineffable. It's oneness made manifest as many. We are in the cosmos, in a body, and the consciousness is in us. Gnosis looks in two directions at once. We see our essential identification as a mystery, and we see our physical person. This is the mystical marriage. When Jesus said, when you see the two as one, so that the male and female are united, then you will enter the kingdom. When you wake up and realize. So our problem is that we're intent on the fragment and severed from the whole. We're aware of the body and not of the essence. The psychic initiation tells us how to live with compassion because we're all one. The pneumatic initiation tells us to transcend the separate self because essentially we're all one. The initiations, these are the levels of ritual and teaching that were part of the mystery schools, the Gnostic teachings. There actually were, you'd go and you'd learn this stuff. You'd be taught this stuff and you'd actually participate in the rituals. But all of it was heavily laced with symbolism. So the psychic initiation is the turning from selfish physicality. It's a focus on the journey to be conscious expression of the oneness of God with love for all. It's all about how to live well. That's when they learned, be a good person. We seem bad when we identify with our ego and we set ourselves apart from the whole. And when we don't cooperate for the good of all. As Plato writes, attachment to self is the constant source of misdeeds in every one of us. Plotinus said evil has its source in self-will. The literalists say we're born in sin, which is the complete opposite because Gnosticism believes that we're all one with perfection, goodness, love, consciousness, the light. The literalists say that we're born in sin and they need strict laws from religious authorities to reform. And if we don't, we'll have eternal suffering. And the truth is the complete opposite, according to the Gnostics. The approach of the Christian Gnostics is the complete opposite of this. Ptolemy explains our essential nature can't possibly be damned, no matter what we do. Consciousness cannot be corrupted regardless of the behavior. It has to pass its time in the company of. A piece of gold does not lose its beauty when it's put into filth, but it keeps its own nature, since the filth can't harm the gold. What leads one is not behavior, but the seed that was sent here as an infant and grows to maturity in this place. We don't get to the kingdom of heaven by obeying rules, but by recognizing that it's the eternal home of our essential self. We are spiritual by nature. We're not saved by how we are, by how we act, but by what we are. To be good, to be a Gnostic, is to purify yourself of egotism. Egotism it obscures our natural goodness. We don't want to identify with the ego, selfishness. It's not what we do that matters, but why we do it. Our motivation defines whether an action is good or bad. Intention. Nothing is impure in and of itself. And so you're not supposed to go along with how everyone thinks. Find what's good within. Decide the right on your own. Figure it out. Traditional laws in religion start you on a path, but as you mature, those laws in religion become irrelevant. You need to move beyond being told what to do by your mommy and daddy, basically. As you awaken, you exhibit your essential goodness. And this supersedes all ethical codes because you don't need them. So this outraged Irenaeus, remember him? He proclaimed that the realization of gnosis that the Christians Gnostics point to, the Christian Gnostics say that this realization sets them free to act spontaneously, regardless of moral conventions. And he's absolutely indignant by this. He says they maintain that they have attained to such heights that they are therefore free in every respect to act as they please and have no fear of doing anything. As we realize gnosis, we no longer abstain from evil because of fear of punishment or do good from hope of promised reward, but naturally we express the good, living spontaneously out of love. For someone aware of the oneness cannot help but express unqualified love for all beings. Love is the perfect archetype of which moral codes are inadequate images. To identify with the Christ is to be discharged from the law. The universal consciousness, which is our essence, is discharged from the law to serve God in a new way, the way of spirit, in contrast to the old way of the written code. We need to transcend the ideas of ethicists and discover the essential loving goodness that we are. You can look righteous, but if you identify with ego, all your actions are ultimately selfish. So we must allow our acts to be God's acts. Desire nothing, hate nothing, and to love all. And I wrote in the margin, oh, is that all? Irenaeus said that Christian Gnostics, just drove him absolutely crazy. But in that state, you can't be judged by others. The state of gnosis, you can't be judged by others. So the pneumatic initiation, now this is the deeper philosophical understanding of the symbolism and the ritual and the meanings. So we continue the journey, but we dig beneath the surface to just living as good people, and really practicing love. It's not about the laws anymore. We try to be living as one, and then coming to the revelation that we are one. It's not just about how you live, it's about who you are. This is a transformative philosophy. It's about the revelation and not the theories. It's not about following the regulations about how to be good. It's not about talking ideas. It's about having that internal revelation and understanding. It's waking up from thinking to the vision. All sages say it's the knowledge of being. Be conscious of being conscious. We are a witness to it all. Understand the mystery is manifesting as consciousness and psyche. The contemplation and stillness that we should pursue disengages us from our body and psyche and from the identification with the witness of our psyche and physical experience. In other words, the more you contemplate, the more you come in touch with your true nature. Focus on having an empty presence within. Transcend consciousness to knowing nothing. Clearing your mind is what they're talking about. The goddess leads the initiate in the ascent. And it's inward to reach the stillness at the level of being, to become aware of the mystery. You disidentify with the ego. Break that identification. Be a passive witness of consciousness. Leave the awareness of the circumference of the circle and withdraw to the center. And they liken it to having a deep sleep while being conscious. Look both ways at once and see what we are, the whole that is conscious of itself. And this is not about rejecting your humanity. Humanity is a prison, yes, but it's also, not to forget, it's an opportunity. If we can spiritually awaken, we will emerge to gnosis. And this physical incarnation is to give us the tool to start doing that. We can only understand oneness by being an individual. The human incarnation is a precious opportunity to commune with oneness, to discover the good through the good-bad duality, to find love through separation. It's exemplified in mythological symbols of Jesus and the God-man. Gnosis creates heaven on earth by a collective dream of unity and love, as compared to the nightmare of division and strife. So what we see in this division and strife has been created on purpose to teach us about oneness and unity of love. It does serve a purpose. We can only achieve absolute gnosis together. We're all one, and we can only realize it as one. So what they're saying is we have a very long way to go. This means that until we all realize suffering, none can be fully free of ignorance and suffering. Individually, our realization of gnosis is a relative experience of the absolute mystery. It's not a state of having awakened, but a process of continually awakening to deeper levels of self-discovery. We can never reach the good, so things can always get better until everybody does it. It's a constant pull to and from oneness and ego. The way is to progress, to increasingly transcend. The way, like capital W, the way. What did Jesus say? I am the way and the light. Pagan Gnostics call the psychic initiation the active life, the like trying to be good, and the pneumatic initiation, the contemplative life, trying to find that inner whatever. These are complementary aspects of an ongoing process of spiritual awakening. Gnosis is an ongoing process of transformation and transcendence, becoming being. The symbolism with Jesus and the goddess, the marriage, it's because gnosis is living life as a love affair of complementary opposites. We have to embrace the paradox. We are all Christ and we are all separate lost souls. It's a journey of self-perfection, and as a perfect end in itself, it's embracing the paradox that we're all Christ and each one of us is a separate lost soul. It's understanding that we are the whole become conscious through a part. So the absolute may be relatively aware of itself. I'm going to say that again because it's a little hard to understand. Understand that we are the whole, become conscious through a part, so that the absolute may be relatively aware of itself. It is being universal mind peering through the pinhole of a particular personality onto the cosmos we have collectively created. The worst vices in existence are ignorance and indifference. Gnosis is the opposite of communion and compassion. Now that's wrong. I read that wrong. It's in opposition. Communion and compassion is gnosis. We have to be in the cosmos, but not of it. It's like watching a film, getting involved with it, but understanding that we aren't actually in it. Therefore, we can be free of fear and enjoy the show and know it's not real. This is how to cope with life, take risks, the risks that life demands, and just witness what's going on. Spiritually, you want to be spiritually awake and have intellectual understanding, but not only. You want to be drunk with love. The purpose of philosophy is to open us to the possibility of ecstasy. I thought it was to give us a headache. Philosophy is hard. So Valentinus imagines the motivation behind the manifestation to be love. He says, since the Father was creative, it seemed good to him to create and produce what was most beautiful and most perfect in himself. For he was all love, and love is not love if there is nothing to be loved. So we are the mystery wanting to love and to be loved. We experience being the one when we love. Gnosis is happiness free from ignorant fear and selfish craving. It's knowing what we don't know. As we find the mystery, we know less and less. Socrates says he knows that he knows nothing. Oh, Socrates didn't say that. The oracle at Delphi said that about Socrates, that he was smart because he knew nothing. So Paul teaches that gnosis is knowing nothing and loving everything. Make no mistake about it. If there is anyone among you who fancies himself wise, he must become a fool again to gain true wisdom. If anyone thinks he knows nothing, yet in the true sense of knowing. Gnosis is to know that you are perfectly safe because you're the essence that lives outside the human predicament. This is good advice, in my opinion, I wrote down. It's like, no, it doesn't make sense and it's a mystery, but it's essentially good. We must not retreat into avoiding the fact of suffering or retreating into wishful thinking. I thought this was probably one of the most profound messages in this book. I'm going to read it again because I think I know I get stuck in this. We must not retreat into avoiding the fact of suffering. We have to face it. Or retreat into wishful thinking. That's no good. What we must do is express our natural compassion and do what we can to ameliorate suffering. Despite appearances, all is well. Everything arises from and is returning to the good. Good will come from bad. Trust the mystery of life. Gnosis is faith. And they're very clear to say this is not to mean that it's blind belief. What it is belief in the fundamental goodness of the unfolding drama of the temporal world. This world is hell. We go on a spiritual quest and we end with trust in life and its goodness in the mystery and in heaven. And so lastly, the treatise on the resurrection boldly asserts, nothing within the account of the truth is truly difficult. I would argue that, but okay. Considering the complicated mythology, the sophisticated philosophy we've been exploring, we could be forgiven for finding this statement ironically amusing. Yet despite the apparent complexities, The essence of the Christian gospel of Gnosis could not be more simple. It is so simple and so obvious, in fact, that it can take years of philosophical exploration before we finally understand that the good news it brings us is all we really want or need to know. Everything is okay. And that's why I decided to do this book, because I thought, we really need to hear this. And it was a complicated journey to get to that very simple message. I hope that helped everybody. This is the book, Jesus and the Lost Goddess. If you have the desire to read this book, I would recommend it. It requires attention. You can't just zip through it. You have to read a little bit and think about it. Read a little bit and think about it. Writing out these notes is really helpful because it forces me to go back and summarize them. And so I've got to think about what they're really saying. I found that very, very helpful. I'll make a playlist of all the videos of this book. So there's 8 in all. And I don't think I can get my hands on the authors. I might try. I don't know. I don't know if they could make it any more understandable. If they're philosophers and theologians, they're probably hard to understand. I don't know. Let's see. So anyway, I really appreciate you listening. I wanted something that was a bit of a break from some of the heavier duty things we've been doing. I've been trying to find a few more lighthearted books. This was lighthearted. Yeah, it's all relative, right? So thank you. Thank you very much for watching, and Slán go bhfuil. Slán.